Oh, yeah. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to the Chronicles of Podcast. And I do believe, Jamie, that this right here is the 81st edition. Right there, literally in the corner. Can you see it right there?
I can see it right there. It's beautiful.
My old mic. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Oh, don't do that. Because I do believe that these Chronicles right here are the Chronicles of Bill Chott.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, wonderful. In that case, then, we better get started. Hit it!
Hey, honey bunny, it's Rivka Reyes.
This is Ron Wasserman, the nut that wrote Go-Go Power Rangers.
It's Boba Fett here.
This is Molly Rennick from Living Dead Girl.
It's WWE superstar, legend, Davey Boy Smith's daughter, Georgia Smith.
Hi, this is Bill Chott from the Wizards of Waverly Place and the movie The Ringer. You're watching the Chronicles of Podcast with Tom and Jamie.
But whose line is it anyway? Is that above SNL or is it...
Boys and girls, please join us as we welcome you to the Chronicles of Bill Chott.
Do you want me to come and drag this piece in?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let me drag this piece in. Come on, you little fucker. Welcome to the Chronicles of Bill Chott.
Want to talk to Karen? Should I wear my shirt up, like that, or down? Or up?
Bill Chott is an incredible improv comedian and actor supreme. He has been seen in so many amazing character actor roles, being Dharma, the Wizards of Waverly Place, who is probably best known as The Ringer with Johnny Knoxville, such an incredibly underrated, heartfelt comedy. He's done absolutely tons of things. Like, this man's IMDb is impressive to look at. You have to go and check it out now. And more on top of that, he's one of the loveliest people we've ever spoken to.
Yep, you can also find him as the Dean in Young Sheldon, and he's also in This Is Us as the mailman as well. There's more roles that I know he's most well known for.
Curious George. Oh, I can't believe I missed off Curious
exactly,
George.
Yeah, come on, Jamie. Come on.
So
come on.
She's done so much.
This is a great conversation. This was so much fun. Do apologize for near the end, as his internet did cut out. He did have a power cut. So if there's a change in audio and everything, and the video, etc., we do apologize for that.
I did my best with the editing. Hopefully it's okay.
I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's absolutely fine. It's just so people are aware it's not your radios or car systems or phones or anything like that. It's just
it's not the wireless.
Yeah, so don't worry about it. It's not the dial-up, you're fine. Jamie!
Yes, sir.
Any final words at all?
Just a massive thank you to Bill. It was so great to actually get to speak to you. An incredible career, an incredible human, and this is a great conversation.
It truly is, ladies and gentlemen. Strap yourselves in, because here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, interviewing this week, it's Bill Chott.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we bring you another incredible guest. Today's guest is an incredible character actor who has worked on some of the biggest movies and shows like Saturday Night Live, The Wizards of Waverly Place, The Ringer, alongside huge names like Dana Carvey, Johnny Knoxville, and Curious George. A man who will make you question whether you should wear your shirt up or down or possibly tucked in. Boys and girls, please join us as we welcome you to the Chronicles of Bill Chott.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on, sir.
It is an absolute pleasure. But I think we'll start with the hard-hitting stuff, Bill. How have the last few years been for you with the pandemic, etc.? I know it's still kind of lingering, but it's not really a problem anymore. So how have the last few years been for you?
They have been... At first, it was like transformational, and I was like, great, this is the reset button. Like... I had many different moments, you know. The first was I woke up on that Saturday of the first weekend of the lockdown, and I was like, I don't have to teach improv class. And I love teaching improv class. I love doing improv, but I had a Saturday to myself, you know. I was teaching those improv classes, A, because I love teaching, but also because I absolutely needed to teach 4 days a week. And now I couldn't. Nobody would let me. And so regardless of the money situation, regardless of life itself, I didn't have to do anything. And it was a blessing. And then I started doing these things called the Live Jive on Facebook Live. And I had inspirational moments in the morning, and then I would have improvisational comedy in the afternoon. So I was broadcasting twice a day. All of a sudden I was like, hey, I've got something to do. I've got my show. And that was wonderful. And then I became my daughter's preschool teacher, which was fun. And I got to explore different exercises and activities with her. My wife was able to both work from home, and she works in commercial real estate. Now we're separated, but at the time and during the pandemic, so she was out doing that. I was here collecting, extra special government unemployment, and doing my own thing, and also teaching classes online once I realized how to use Zoom. And then, like I said, I separated from my wife. So that was a period that was kind of a down period. And now here I am out there performing live again, doing improv, and back into the dating scene. So there's been several ups and downs and transformations, but it's been overall incredibly rewarding. Despite all the tragedy to others, to members of my family, even, it's been transformational, to say the least.
Great word.
I think a lot of people...
I'm so sorry as well. Sorry.
Oh, well, life goes on, and, I think everything happens for the best. You have to believe that, as the song Pronoia says, I don't know if you've heard that song, but I love it, that the world is conspiring in your favor. Instead of the world is conspiring against you, the world is conspiring, the universe is conspiring in your favor. That way, anything that happens, you're like, well, it's good. Now I'm dealing with this or something better.
I like that way of putting it. I like that a lot. But you're absolutely right, though. These past few years, they have been transformational for many people, whether it be good or bad. I'm quite glad that most of the people we speak to on this show have come out of it in a better light, in a better sense. They've learned new skills, they've got new opportunities in life, that they've had those transformational moments, internal as well, that self-reflection period. So I'm so glad to hear that you've done the same as well. They've learned those new skills. And
P.S. I lost 50 pounds and a total of 100 pounds.
Yes! Incredible. We love it.
But please take us back, sir, to the days of young Master Cott. What did you originally aspire to be when you grew up? Was it always like acting and improv and stuff for you, or was it something completely different, like train driver?
It was right here. I think at one point I looked back at something that I had done when I was in kindergarten, and they asked me what I wanted to be in life, and I said I wanted to be an army man and fight for my country. But I think that was just propaganda that was around or something. That was, we're talking about, just, I think at that point, just coming out of the Vietnam War. So that just goes to show you what a strong propaganda tool television can be. Because God knows where I was getting that message. It wasn't from my family. But after that, all I wanted to do was perform. I started doing magic at a very young age. My parents would, when they had house guests over, they'd have me come out and sing or do magic tricks I used to do impressions of people I had never seen the original of. I had seen impressionists do impressions of Jimmy Cagney and Edward G. Robinson and all that. I had never seen them on film, and I was doing impressions of their impressions. So I was performing from a very, very young age for friends and family. And then every time there was a show and tell at school, a play at school, I had to be in it. And I'm not qualified to do anything else. My only jobs outside of writing and performing have been washing dishes at a pizza joint, which was my first ever job, making pizzas, working at a Steak and Shake, which is a chain of diners that we have in the Midwest out here, and working at a bank, which I did to kind of like, I know. You're like, a bank? Where's that? Well, I got a degree in communications with a theater emphasis. And several members of my family worked at this local bank, St. John's Bank, which is in our community. It's a community my father grew up in, the community that my grandmother grew up in. And so it was a very family sort of a thing. It was a local bank. It's one of the few community banks back there in St. Louis. And so when I wanted to move to Chicago to study at the Second City, I was like, well, I'll just look for another banking job. And then I found one pretty quickly, because who the hell wants to work at a bank?
The transition from making pizza to giving money out and storing money for people. It was just it's quite a...
I eventually balanced a vault that would have $5 million inside of it. They trusted me with that, with my sticky little pizza fingers.
Well, why is there cheese on this note? No reason.
I don't know, but there's oregano too. Give it back.
I'm saving that for later. I was gonna say, to do the work you do and to play like the variety of characters and everything, you must have an outgoing personality. So obviously you've just said, you've always been that since you were a kid. Where does that come from though? Is it people in your family that are like that, or is it just you were the weirdo kid of the family that just like to perform?
I'm the middle kid. The middle kid's always striving for attention. I think that's a large part of it. But there were several members of my family that were actors. My grandfather, my mother's father, was a union actor in St. Louis when he retired from being a welder. He was also a Marine. He fought in World War II and Iwo Jima, and then in Korea. And then he came back to the States, became a union welder for most of his career. And, he always had a calling to be an actor. And then he retired and he started doing commercials and movies and, whatever would come his way. And so I think some of that's from him. Some of that's from my father, who was a writer. And my dad was a performer too. He was in a seminary before he met my mother. He was training to be a priest. And he would be in all the plays and musicals there. And so he auditioned in St. Louis, it's called the Muni Opera, which is an outdoor amphitheater where people perform. And he was told that it was unbecoming of a seminarian. So he auditioned and got the job to be in the chorus, and like meet Broadway actors that were touring through. But no, they said it was unbecoming of a seminarian. So he was always very supportive of what I did. So I think I get it from both sides of my family. I am not actually an extrovert, though. I can go into extrovert mode, but I prefer to be an introvert. I prefer to listen. I prefer to be a little bit more passive. And I think my personality is I'm forcing myself to become more outgoing, because I think I'm making the world a better place when I'm more extroverted. So for the benefit of mankind, I'll do it.
I guess.
Yeah.
I get that though. A lot of people I'm a bit like that. Like when I'm not doing this, I'm quite quiet. I stick to myself. I've got my small group of friends, but as soon as I'm doing this, I'm like, hey, tell me a story.
Right.
It's like performance brings it out of you. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
But so what point in life growing up did you sort of decide, I want to be an actor, I want to get into this line of work?
I think it was a play in the 5th grade, I think it was. And I saw auditions posted, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be in that play. And I came home and told my dad, hey, I'm going to be in this play. And he said, when was the audition? And I said, oh no, they haven't had the auditions yet. And he goes, well, then how do you know you're going to be in this play? I said, I know I'm going to be. And I was right. I wound up I played the king in a play called The Pale Pink Dragon, that was all about this princess that got turned into a dragon by a witch. And I was her father, and I led the search party to go find her, and I had a solo and everything. And we invited my whole family to come out and see it, and they were all proud. And my dad told me afterwards, hey, I never really wanted to encourage you to go into show business because I was wanting to do it, and then I was discouraged from doing it. And I also know it can be a very tough business. It's a tough life. And he started tearing up, and he said, but after seeing you tonight, I'm not going to stand in your way.
Oh, it's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, damn, if I want to do it this bad and I got my dad's blessing, here we go. So everything I did in my life after that was geared towards that. Every time there was an audition, every time I could be part of some sort of performance, I would apply myself and become a part of it. When I went to college, at first I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to go right to Second City and study improv in Chicago. And my dad said, they're not going to hire you without any college experience. You need to go get a liberal arts education so you can have a knowledge, a more in-depth knowledge of literature and history and the world around you. And for the most part, he was true, but I can't remember anything that I learned in college.
It looked good on paper, though. Got you in.
Yeah. Done and paid for. Got me into Second City.
Which is obviously that was the aim. I love the positive attitude, by the way, of the fact that, by the way, I'm going to be in this play. Nothing's actually happened yet, but I'm definitely going to be in it. All right.
Yeah.
You did theatre at school and college, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Was that to get to Second City, or is that something that you wanted to pursue and thought, actually, no, I want to go and do improv and acting?
No, I theater was a stepping stone to getting on camera, and it at that point I didn't even say like I want to do this versus that. I just wanted to perform, and I didn't care what the venue was. And at that point, the options were stage, radio, film, and television. There wasn't an internet yet, so I couldn't really do anything myself and put it out there. And also, I spent so much time in the theater because that was part of my work study program. I got, if I'd worked so many hours down in the theater, that was more money that was added as a grant. So I was building sets. I was, working on productions, whether I was on stage or not. But I wound up being on stage in every production that I wanted to be a part of. And I wanted to be a part of every one.
Again, positive attitude. I love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that, like you're saying, that positive attitude that, no, I'm going to do it. I don't care what it takes. I'll do whatever needs doing. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. It's the only person that's standing in the way of you and what you want to do is you.
Yeah.
I heard this great quote the other day. Somebody says, wherever you find a closed door, you have another opportunity to knock.
Ooh.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great quotes, Bill.
Somebody tells you why you can't do something, go, great. Now I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to be able to do that so I can get through that door. Let yourself fail, man. That's what improv's all about.
You segued me to my next question, and that was beautiful, Bill. I love that. I was going to say,
I'm really good at psychic segues.
That's great. I was going to say, we've mentioned improv quite a few times now. Where does that love of improv come from?
It kind of came from my dad. He loved the Second City. And although he was in St. Louis at the time when the Compass Theater, which later became the Second City, was performing in St. Louis, he never saw them perform there, but he had heard about them and knew about it and, was aware of Nichols and May because that was their heyday when he was growing up as a young man. And so, like I said, he was a writer. He wrote industrials, corporate theater for companies. He would write, the speech for the president of the company and slideshows, but he would also write full musical comedies based on whatever theme they were trying to get across to their employees. And in some cases, he could just outright hire a company to come in and do things. And he said every time there was a show in Chicago, he would just say, you're a fool if you don't hire the Second City. Hire up their whole cast, have them help write it and perform it. And that's what they did. And so he was kind of connected with Second City early in his career. And then when SCTV and Saturday Night Live came out, he would let us stay up way past our bedtimes to watch that comedy. And we knew that the idea was that it was all made up and it came from the process of improvisation. So, like I said before, even by the time I was in high school, I knew that what I wanted to do, like people would give me like books on the Second City, and so I could start reading about what I wanted to do. The same way that before I discovered all that, they would give me books on magic and magic tricks, and you know, I was my passions were always fostered by family and friends, and still are.
I was going to say, you can tell your dad had like a huge influence on you. Like you said,
Absolutely.
like Second City, like, yep, I'm going to Second City.
Yeah,
like, I love that. It's great.
And I've got his name too. He was Bill Chott as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. Speaking of SNL, you're just saying that I've always wished SNL was a thing over here in the UK. It's so fun, and I've seen clips of it online and stuff like that. I'm like, why can't that be a thing here?
Well, you all have your own, you know, cultural identity, and you have your own, you know, versions of that. Like when I was in the 80s, like, you know, when I took my time travel back to the 80s. No, when I grew up, there was, it was that great show. And I'm surprised if it's not still around, with all the puppets. It had all the, you know, back then it was, of course, they had Margaret Thatcher and Reagan and Prince Charles and Princess Diana and
Spitting Image.
Yeah, Spitting Image. There you go. Yeah. Which was a totally different take. You know, you can go anywhere with puppets and it actually looks like them, you know? You know, and you guys have had stuff, you know, Monty Python, you know, no knock on SNL, but 20 times funnier than SNL. So you've had something better than SNL, and don't get all humble about it.
All right, fine.
They're taking Spitting Image to the theatre now. I've heard it today. So,
oh really?
Yeah, they're going to take it to the theatres. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I bet it'd be fantastic. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing what they do with that. But you
and Beyond the Fringe, and I'm just going to start spitting the entire British comedy history to you, just so you guys don't feel beat down by the fact that you don't have SNL. Screw that.
But you hit the improv scene with like some amazing people, Steve Carell, Amy Poehler. But with improv, obviously, you have to be so quick, because obviously it's like, give me a name, what are they doing, or what's their occupation? Said like it's just speed, isn't it? And you don't ask questions. Is that correct?
You try to avoid questions. Obviously, you can be you know, you've heard people improvise and use questions, but from a beginner standpoint, we try to ask beginners not to ask questions, because they do that from a place of insecurity, because they're not sure what to happen next in the scene. It's always best to make a statement, and a yes and statement at that. If somebody gives you something, instead of trying to figure out what it is, just agree with it. Don't try to make sense of it. And then obviously the less you understand about it, the more nonsensical whatever comes out of your mouth will be, and that'll be funny. And if you fail, people go, oh, well, it was improv, you know. They don't hold you to this high standard, like they had months to rehearse and it came out as that. No, if you have any response, they're impressed. And if your response isn't top notch, they're like, oh, well, you know, it was improv. Or there's two things that can happen in response to something. One is that you can say the expected thing. So if you say the most natural and normal thing to you, and it's a normal thought, which can't always be dependent upon with improvisers, but if it's a normal thought, then the majority of the audience will laugh out of recognition. Oh, I thought that same thing when they said that. And if what is most natural to you is 180 degrees from what the audience is expecting, then it's a surprise, and they'll laugh at that. So they'll either laugh out of recognition or surprise. You really can't go wrong as long as you don't hesitate with improv. And, you know, you can ask questions, but the spirit of trying to get information from your scene partner, instead of saying, oh, great, you gave me all this. This is all the information I need. I'm going to build on it.
Let me just write that down.
Please do. You got to have this recorded. You can write it down later.
That's I knew that. All right.
You're saying, you know, you studied in several places that I could see, but as you've mentioned, Second City in Chicago, that is the one.
Yeah. My first teacher was Stephen Colbert.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Just to say that.
And then I was able to work with him. I'm sorry, I interrupted your question.
I was just going to say, like, Second City, was it everything you hoped it would be, or was it? Because there must have been a lot of pressure going into it.
It didn't even get the chance to be everything that I hoped it would be, because I was hired up while I was still in the touring company. I had hoped to start up a show on the main stage and, have my cast. Well, it turned out that my touring company was my main stage cast. My touring company was, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Rachel Dratch, Ali Farinakian, Kevin Dorff, Pat McCartney, those, Rachel Hamilton, Frances Callier. They're like a rotating circle. We weren't all in the same group at the same time, but, that was I got to have a main stage company on the road, but you get paid a lot less and you're crammed into a van performing in Iowa. But so it was everything that I'd hoped it would be and more in terms of where it got me, which was the Dana Carvey show. I got hired up. They even took a look at me for Second City before I got the Dana Carvey show. And that was while I was in the touring company. And that doesn't often happen, that somebody's in a touring company and they get the opportunity to audition for SNL. So I felt very blessed. And I did express some regret that when I got hired up for the Dana Carvey show, that my name wouldn't be up on the wall of people who had mounted a show there.
It's one of those ones, that it's like, I got there, I did it, I succeeded, but at the same time,
yeah,
quite. I get what you mean, yeah. But you mentioned,
maybe I'll have to go back there and direct a review or something. Who knows?
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. So you mentioned Dana Carvey show there, but one thing I wanted to mention before that, I was doing my research, and if IMDb is correct, which, let's be honest, it's a 50-50 chance.
Right.
Your first TV performance was on, let me get this right, the Armando Diaz Experience, Theatrical Movement and Hootenanny.
I don't know why that's listed as a television performance, because it was not. It was a stage performance.
Okay, I was going to ask, what the hell is that? Because it's a great name.
It's a great show that is basically a format that almost all improv theaters use now, and it's based on a man named Armando Diaz, who was a great storyteller. And Armando would tell these stories, and then we'd spin out a bunch of scenes that were inspired by themes that were brought up. We wouldn't replay the stories that he told, but we would take themes and characters from those stories and then put them in play into scenes, and then, explore the characters that were created or the settings that were created as a result of that, call those scenes back and revisit them. And hopefully we try to find threads that run through it all that we can connect and tie together by the end of the whole thing. Which is why I say failure doesn't matter, because you can have a bunch of failures, but if in the end you're able to tie everything together and find some sense or some message or some sense out of it all, it's allowed to have flaws. Just like a great rug, a great Persian rug, is purposefully scarred in deference to God, because nothing can be perfect. It's all right if the improv isn't perfect, because there will be a perfect moral from it, or there will be a perfect tale or a character, something that pops out that was worthwhile. And that was the Armando, and that's what we would do. But my actual first performance on television was as a child in a game show. And I played ruthlessly against a good friend of mine, Jimmy. It was this show called DB's Delight, and the host of the show was a puppet who had a mustache, and he'd be like, okay, we'll take a look at the cards. And then he would read the cards. And then Bobby Day, I think was his name, was the local DJ who would actually read the cards. And then DB, the puppet, would just, spout off, he would, update the score and spout off about how well the kids are doing, or make some joke about whatever trivia was involved in the question. That was the first time I ever appeared on television, and that would have been at about 5th grade, around the same time that I did my first play.
Did you win? Did you beat Jimmy?
I did. Yes. I won a $50 savings bond, which was worth $25 6 months later, and I cashed it out. And I think we got a set of encyclopedias, but I'm not sure.
Sounds about right for a game show. Yeah, set of encyclopedias.
It was a weekly game show for kids by a local TV station. They didn't have a huge budget.
You weren't going home with Speedboat or something stupid like that, let's be honest.
I used to watch it on Saturday mornings. It was on right after the cartoons were over. We used to always have Saturday morning cartoons. And then, there would be some dance shows on some of the different channels, like, American Bandstand and Soul Train. But DB's Delight would come on at about 2 p.m. on I think it was channel 4 in St. Louis.
Amazing.
So that was a real. And then later, when my touring company was me and Tina Fey and Ali Faranakian, that was 3 of us. I think it was the 3 of us that appeared. There might have been some more. It might have been Francis and Rachel too. But we appeared on a local telethon in Chicago. I think it was for the Labor Day telethon or something like that. But when they're like, and now we'll throw to Chicago for whatever, local unit. Yeah, we did a classic Second City sketch live, and it didn't go over well because it was not an audience. There was just the studio workers and the people who were supposedly answering phones. So we weren't getting the laughter that we knew we would get if we were doing it live. But we did all right.
Must be tough actually going from, working on stage with audience and stuff like that to then, as you say, there's no audience. That must be so hard to adjust to.
I think working in film and like single camera television is a little boring, to be honest.
I can imagine because there's no feedback.
Yeah. It is. And you have to do what you've done time after time after time. You have to do the wide shot, then you have a 2 shot, then you're over somebody's shoulder, then it's over somebody else's shoulder, then a close up. And you have to either keep it consistent or keep it new and interesting every time. And if you're keeping it too new and interesting, the shots won't match, so it's just for you. And if it's too close to what you've done before, it becomes very, very boring very quickly, no matter how emotional or intense it is. I would much rather be working in front of a live audience on like a television show that's in front of a live audience, or being at a live event, or doing a game show even. Over being on, I had a lot of fun doing a show called This Is Us, where I was a mailman that made a bunch of people cry because I was so sad. But it took a lot of work emotionally to get to that point. And once I was there, I was like, oh, I have to do this again. I have to, serve up this trauma again and again and again and again. And I got some great recognition for it, which was wonderful. But honestly, I do love the feedback from an audience, the instant feedback, the reaction, and what it brings out of me.
Because your list is quite extensive, Third Rock from the Sun, Galaxy Quest, ER, to now, like you said, This Is Us, Young Sheldon, and the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary. I mean, that's quite a transition.
Yes,
going from Young Sheldon to the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary.
There should be a world where the 2 of them exist in a wonderful way, where like old Sheldon turns out to be a serial killer.
I can see it.
And we see young Sheldon experimenting with hamsters and things. What happened?
He loves science, so
Yeah. One of my favorite lines from the whole Dahmer monster, like it wasn't in my episode, but like when they told him that he couldn't do taxidermy anymore as a hobby, he was like, all right, I guess no more hobbies for me. There was so much comedy, dark comedy in that incredibly chilling tale.
It's great series. That was incredible. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. I was honored to be a part of it.
I'll say, because you've done quite a variety, haven't you? Like drama, like This Is Us, but then you've done Young Sheldon, which is comedy, then you've gone to serial killer. Like you can literally put your hand to anything. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to work in both comedy and drama, both live in front of an audience and on set, on film, and still have the opportunity to play in front of live audiences. I'm really getting into being back in front of live audiences again. I think that's why I'm so like, trying to shove the camera in the closet right now, because it's just so good. Even if it's a small house late at night in an improv theater somewhere, it's just so good to be there with an ensemble working together, trying to just create something out of nothing, and having it land with some people who came there out of curiosity on their night off.
I suppose it's quite intimate as well. So it's quite
very
intimate setting. Yeah. Which makes it even
I did a
better.
show this last week that was so intimate there were only 3 actual audience members.
What?
Yeah.
Was that 3 seats?
No, there were like, I would say I'd say maybe it was a 50-seat theater or something like that. It was a very small black box venue. And it was promoted very well. Just, 10 p.m. Thursday in LA doesn't tend to garner a lot of audience. And apparently my name means nothing in this town. But so we had it means a lot more when I go back to St. Louis, my hometown. But in LA, there's so many different people of different varying levels of fame performing any one night that, just one name isn't going to bring folks out. But so we just had fun.
I was going to say, as long as those 3 people had a great time.
Yeah. And even if there weren't 3 people, we would have had a great time. The best improv happens usually at a practice or in a class.
I suppose there's less pressure.
There's too much pressure to keep the audience entertained, laughing. People are less, they're more risk averse when an audience is watching. I'm not. I'll let shit fail. Brazenly.
There's no better feeling than making people laugh, though. I find I always get such joy, even if it's just one person, just such joy out of saying one thing and they're just dead on the floor for like 5 minutes. It's absolutely fantastic. Such a great feeling.
Yes. Yeah, and the less work you have to put into for that laugh, the better. When it's just like a silence. Sometimes just you're holding off on having a response to somebody gets that big of a oh my God. There's no better feeling than, hey, I barely lifted a finger and the audience won't quit laughing.
Yeah. And then once someone gets going, someone else gets going, and then just it spirals.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Love it. So there's a few, as Tom was just saying, you've worked on so many different projects, but for someone that loved improv, working on SNL must have been up there, like career highlight, I'd imagine.
It really was. I had auditioned for SNL about 3 years prior to that, and didn't get on. And because I was doing this impression that I did of Jackie Gleason taking a difficult crap, and
okay,
it's actually, if you want to hear more about it, there's a documentary called Too Funny to Fail on Hulu. It's really, really funny. Highly recommend it. And it tells the story in a bit more detail, but that was kind of the reason that I didn't get SNL, because Lauren did not like that at all. And later I auditioned for the Dana Carvey show, and Robert Smigel came out into the lobby and said, "Hey, Bill, will you do your Jackie Gleason taking a difficult crap?" And I was like, "I thought that's what ruined my SNL audition." She goes, "Oh yeah, it did. But I think Dana will think it's really funny because he knows what makes Lauren laugh and what Lauren hates. So he'll appreciate what's funny about it, and he'll appreciate why Lauren didn't like it." I was like, "Okay, here we go." And I did it, and that's what got me my callbacks and got everything. So we did the Ambiguously Gay duo first on the Dana Carvey show, and the show was canceled rather unceremoniously. I was still living in New York. A bunch of my friends had just been hired to be on the show. I was very excited to see the next season. So I went into my kitchen to get some more Coke and some popcorn, that's my kind of tradition. I always have some Coke and popcorn and watch the season opener. But before I got back from the kitchen, I heard my own voice on the television saying, "This week's episode, it takes 2 to tango." And I'm like, holy shit, I'm on SNL. That's how it happened. And then, the next week or so, I get a call from the studio saying, "Oh, we need you to sign this paperwork because we forgot to do that." I'm like, okay. And then I got paid exactly what I got paid for the first time it aired on the Dana Carvey show, which was great. And so they would have us come into the, we went over to 30 Rock and recorded it there. Did a couple more there when I was still living in New York. And then when I moved out to LA, of course, Steve Carell and I had moved out here, and the two of us would go to the Capitol Records building in Hollywood, where Frank Sinatra once stood and sang. And we would, say our silly lines into that microphone. Probably not the same microphone, but definitely you could tell by how the wood was worn on that same floor.
Mental. But so SNL was playing clips from the Dana Carvey show. Is that what you say?
In that one instance.
Okay.
And then just for the ambiguously gay duo. And then they also took a sketch that that Dana did where he was Tom Brokaw doing an obituary for Gerald Ford. And I think they talk about that in the documentary as well. So I don't want to go over it in too big a length. But so he's recording all the options in case President Gerald Ford would die. They have the newscasters, read all these different options, and they keep on, and it builds. And so it was very funny, and just a shame that I think it was in our final episode that didn't air. And so years later, when Dana hosted SNL, they did the sketch live, pretty much as it was written, with pretty much the same graphics, I think, even that he had, the news graphics that he had coming up behind him. And then later, they took a sketch that Dino Stamatopoulos had written, a great writer for Mr. Show, that Stephen Colbert and I had done, where we were folk singers. And then later, because that one never aired either, was performed by David Cross and Bob Odenkirk on Mr. Show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, a movie that you're pretty well known for, like I referenced it in the intro to the show because I absolutely love this movie, is The Ringer with Johnny Knoxville. It's the wonderful Thomas. What was it like making that movie? Because I've heard many different reports over the years.
It was so cool. It started off, they brought us down there to Austin, Texas to improvise on the script some. And Ricky Blitt was very open to that, and the Farrelly brothers were open to that, and Barry Blaustein, the director, he had an SNL history. He was writing on SNL in the early seasons, and so they all saw the value of improv. So the idea was for us to go down there to improvise, to kind of immerse ourselves in the Special Olympics culture. So there were Special Olympians globally who were coming out to visit with us and do events. We had a bowling event. We had an event where we, went down the river on a riverboat and got to see the bats in Austin. There's these bats that hang out under this bridge. And then after sunset, they all fly out and you get to see it at sunset. It's gorgeous and haunting all at the same time. If you're ever in Austin, Texas for like South by Southwest, insist on seeing the bats. But there was just all these wonderful experiences. And then we had to train in all the Olympic events that we were going to be doing on screen. So, you see me doing hurdles incorrectly as Thomas in the movie, but I had to learn how to do it correctly so that I didn't hurt myself when I needed to do it incorrectly. And also we wanted to represent Special Olympics and say, like, these are actual athletes who train, at a competitive level. And we wanted to do that with full respect for Special Olympics because they had given us their blessing. And, there was a Special Olympics representative on set every day, if not multiple. And, ever since that project, I've been involved with Special Olympics, not just because of the experience making the movie, but the experience that we had for those, I think it was 2 weeks. It felt like a month because I was in physical pain. I had never really trained athletically. I had been to gym class, but I was never on a sports team or anything like that. So I couldn't walk. My quadriceps were all torn up, my calves. I was like, I have to walk up another hill. Because everything there in Austin is walking distance. So nobody bothers to take cabs or buses or anything. Oh, I was in pain. And, just built some friends for life. So even before we started working on it, it was the experience of a lifetime. And then doing it, our kickoff party, I met Dean Stanton, Woody Harrelson. They were still in town shooting other stuff because they're like, Austin royalty. Greg Kinnear. It was just so it was really was the experience of a lifetime shooting that movie.
I can
I
imagine.
think a lot of people are quite quick to be like, "Oh, this is taking the piss. This is ridiculous." Blah blah blah. But everyone has to put their opinion in, don't they? Before they actually take the time to actually study it and watch it properly and actually, find out what it's about. It's straight in like, "No, I'm not having that."
Yeah, the great part about that is none of the Special Olympics families complained that I'm aware of, because in advance of the movie, even before it was released, they had Special Olympics events in every city where they would do a screening of it and, listen very closely to people's feedback. And, even before we went into production, there was so much input from Special Olympians themselves and the global messengers. I later went on to do improv training for a lot of the global messengers for Special Olympics, which was a joy and really fun. And we had a competitive improv event, which was really cool, at Lake of the Ozarks back in St. Louis, or back in Missouri. Yeah, it was, there were people who weren't aware of what the movie was, hadn't cracked open the script or hadn't watched it, that had a lot negative to say. But I get hugs from Special Olympians and their families to this day, out of love and respect for that movie.
Because it's so respectful and it's hilarious and it's full of heart. And it's like, whenever anyone mentions Johnny Knoxville, my first thing after we took the Jackass talk is, have you seen The Ringer? Because it's just brilliant. You have to watch this film.
Yeah.
But was there any concern? I know, going into it, it had that, we're going to treat it with respect. We're going to make sure but was there ever concern that you were going to offend someone? Maybe not from you personally, but, from the people making the film, are we going to offend anyone? Was it sort of treading on eggshells, or was it, no, people are going to love this, let's go for it?
I think they knew. I think, the Farrelly brothers don't care who they offend. Johnny Knoxville doesn't care who he offends. No, Barry Blaustein came to the project with such heart that I don't think it ever entered his mind that anybody could be in the right and be offended by this movie. And I went into it knowing what I knew about my character, because I had been doing a character, under a different name. I've been doing that character since I was in high school. His name was Frederick, but those were the same glasses. I found those glasses at a secondhand store, put them on, and almost immediately became that character, which was an amalgam of, people that I knew or people that I had volunteered with, or, people that I had met or seen. And I always played him respectfully. And, people would laugh so hard because they were like, I can laugh at this, because he's always high status. He's always making other people look foolish. So I knew going in. So some of the actors were, when they were around the Special Olympics families, would kind of stay in character. And I didn't feel that was authentic to me, because I couldn't see through those glasses. I had to take them off. But sometimes they would stay in character so they weren't outed as somebody who was, mocking or pretending to be, to have a disability. But I wasn't. I was, really open about it. Take off the glasses, rub my eyes a little bit, and lean hard into the really fun conversations I would have with Special Olympians and their parents.
I love that. I love it. I just love how, you went into this being like, no, these people are amazing, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows that these people are amazing, and continued that with the Spread the Word campaign. It's phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal. I respect the living hell out of you for it. So it's incredible.
Thank you. I was so happy to do that back in my home state, to travel all around to rural high schools where, the mindset is, there was even a principal of one of the schools who passed on having an assembly. They passed on having me and a Special Olympian come to speak to the students. And I would usually make the kids laugh a lot. It was better than your average assembly. But he refused, and we were like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because they don't want people to say, you know." I'll say the word now just for edification for people who aren't familiar. But he said, because they don't want people to say the word retarded, and that's what those people are. That was his mindset. And we were telling people, we were spreading the word to end the R word so that kids wouldn't say that a person was that, or an idea was that, or this dance is that, because it was, making light of somebody's humanity.
Wow.
And so that's when it, even though it was like insulting to hear that, and it made my heart ache, it also let me know that's the reason why we're here, because people are still thinking that way. And we need to start young. We need to let kids know early, because, kids kind of naturally want to fit in. They'll do anything to fit in. And if they see other people are doing something, they'll do it too, whether they think it's right or wrong or not. Absolutely. So that was important.
Completely agree. And wow, the fact that man is in charge of people's education is really daunting.
Yes, it is.
But I suppose the other thing you're most known for, and is the complete opposite end of the spectrum to Thomas, and that is the Disney show Wizards of Waverly Place as Mr Laritat, alongside a very young Selena Gomez.
Yeah.
Is this the role that you're probably most known for?
I would say most often I'm recognized for that. When I go on TikTok live and do TikToks, people usually, "Oh, Mr. Laritat, hey, Mr." But then people will say, like, "Should I wear my shirt up or down, or eye contact," or something like that, one of the lines from The Ringer. And I'll be like, "All right, now I know my people." And most often when I get a request on Cameo, when people want me to send a birthday greeting or something like that on Cameo, they'll say, can you please do Thomas? They'll ask me to do Thomas for them, or say something about, one of the quotes. So, it's like there's different niches that know me from one or the other. I think overall people know me from Wizards of Waverly Place, but there is a pocket of people who are diehard Ringer fans, and they let me know it.
I love how opposite ends of the spectrum they are. It's great.
Yeah.
Was this the first kids show that you've worked
on? I kind of believe it was. Yeah, because I had later on I did an episode of Kickin' It, which was another Disney show, and it wasn't until later that I did voices for Curious George, the animated series.
Yes.
I do the voice of the doorman who's like, hello, Mr. Yellow Hat.
Oh, that's
hey, George. Yeah. We're going into the city today. And then Huntley the dog.
That's phenomenal. I used to watch so much Curious George and my daughter, so that was just amazing to me to hear that.
Yeah. I have two. She was not interested. My daughter.
Oh, it was
no interest in seeing me on the screen.
Some of my favorite memories covered a lot with my daughter, just watching Curious George. She's still got her teddy from back in the day. She will never get rid of it. She's like 11 years old now. That's going nowhere. But
for my daughter, it was Daniel Tiger.
Oh God, I know that one. Yeah,
she loved that.
Yeah, my other daughters made me watch that plenty on YouTube, and yeah, it's not for me, that one. Plus, I just get the theme song stuck in my head.
Yeah.
But with Wizarding, were you nervous going into this? As it's your first kids show, but not now. It's Disney.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of pressure there, I imagine, working on a Disney show.
Oddly enough, there was no pressure whatsoever that I felt. I was hired very quickly. I did the audition, and before I left the lot, they got a call asking for my availability. And they said I was one of the quickest people ever hired for a Disney show.
Wow.
I was out of town. I wasn't there to audition for that show. I was supposed to be auditioning for a different movie. And they said, while you're there, could you please read for this Disney thing? And I was like, no, I don't have time for it. It's a one-time guest spot, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And they said, well, they didn't say it was recurring, but it could. I was like, listen, my cousin just passed away. I'm dealing with grief, and I really need to focus on this big movie audition. And It was All About Steve, the movie with why am I forgetting her name? Anyway, it was All About Steve, and I didn't get that project, but I did get Wizards of Waverly Place, and it turned into a gig that ran for 5 years.
But you're glad you went back now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's a podcast for it as well, isn't there? Wizards of Waverly Place pod.
Yes, yeah. David DeLuise and Jennifer Stone just started the Wizards of Waverly pod, and people can listen to us all talk about our favorite episodes, behind the scenes stories, and answer fans' questions. So fans of the show can ask questions, and they get answered right there on the podcast.
That's absolutely amazing. So I don't know where exactly it is in the pecking order, but whose line is it anyway? Is that above SNL or is it below? Like, and how come you haven't been on it?
I've never been on Whose Line. There's so many great performers that I know who have been on it. I think as far as, if there's it's so tough to like evaluate improv and put a pecking order or a judgment, because then all of a sudden you're immediately stepping out of what improv asks of you, which is not to judge or evaluate. But if you wanted to say like, what is the level of hipness and cool, I would definitely say, at least over here, SNL is, above Whose Line. But I would also say there's a whole generation of improvisers, myself included, who learned so many of those improv games that, we use as the basis for everything that we create with, from the original Whose Line, the British Whose Line that was syndicated over here on Comedy Central. And that had more, I think, a little bit more hipness and cachet to it, even though a lot of the improvisers were the same people, just because it was, for a British audience. I don't know, maybe your audiences are a bit more high-minded and get some, a little bit more of the literary references and cultural references, historical references, things like that. So at that point, it definitely was demanding more of my attention than SNL was. But I think in terms of overall cachet right now, I think SNL kind of like holds that key. But there's so many other things that, are considered hipper than that I'm not even aware of,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, man. So obviously doing your work as a character actor, we mentioned earlier some of like the incredible shows that you'd worked on, ER, Young Sheldon, Monk, CSI, we could go on. Were there any shows that you really wish you could have either returned to or stayed on a bit longer? You like really enjoyed what you did, or you really enjoyed that character?
I was surprised that they didn't have me back for more on This Is Us. I was really, really, really surprised because it had such an impact, and I was trending on Twitter. And if you look up on Google, played the mailman on, boom, you get thousands of searches for Bill Chott. That's how many people wanted to know who I was and who did it. And even Yvette Nicole Brown from Community and so many other wonderful projects let people know who I was on Twitter, completely wonderfully and selflessly. And she's a wonderful human being. So I was really surprised that they didn't have me back on that. I would have loved to be back more on Young Sheldon, because they had me in there as the dean. I've actually been on there 3 different times. The first time I was the manager at a Red Lobster on the daddy-daughter date at Red Lobster. And they cut so much of me out of there that nobody would notice me making a reappearance. And so they had me back as the dean, and we shot that during the pandemic. We had to have the face shields on and masks and all the precautions with distance and everything. And then they reused some of that footage in another episode for some reason. And I didn't get paid as much. So I've been on the show 3 different times. I would have liked to have been on there as the dean and to be, if for no other reason than to hang out with my buddy Lance, who plays his dad. Lance has always made me feel very welcome on that set, and introduced me around and let me know that the tricks of the craft service table and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
I love that on Young Sheldon, you went from like manager of Reb's Lobster to the dean. It's almost like your own life where you went from working in a pizza place to a bank.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to pretend
it was typecasting. It was typecasting.
In my imagination, now that is just the same person. He literally went from Red Lobster to working in the dean.
It literally was.
But at the same time, though, saying that, is there any like actors or directors you've worked with? You're like, I really want to work with that guy again.
Well, I would love to work with Barry Blaustein again, who was the director of The Ringer. I would love to work with the Farrelly brothers. They were great as producers and very involved in the project. I'd love to work with Robert Smigel again, who was the exec producer of the Dana Carvey show. I would love to work with Peter Murrieta, who was the exec producer of Wizards of Waverly Place. We met for coffee a couple weeks ago. It was wonderful. I miss that guy. I miss working with him. So in terms of like the writers, and I would love to be on another Ricky Blitz screenplay, who wrote The Ringer. So many. God, I'd love to work with everybody that I've worked with in the past. In terms of, other actors that I've worked with previously that I'd love to work again, love to work with David DeLuise. He and I really have a great chemistry. Love to work with Selena again. Of course, the whole damn cast of Wizards, wonderful people, and I would love to work with all of them. I would love to work with Jeff Arend, who played he was in The Ringer. He said the famous line about the ice cream. Winston is the character's name. When the fuck did we get ice cream? He improvised that line. And he's not necessarily an improviser. He does improv, but he's a great classically trained actor. He was in Mother Night with Meryl Streep at the Public Theater in New York. That's the sort of actor he is. I would love to work with Jeffrey again. I would love to work with Jed Rees, Leonard Howes. What a giant, that man is just one big giant heart. And we haven't had a chance to spend time together or perform together or anything in a long, long, long time. Those are some of the biggies. God, I would love to do sketch comedy with Dana Carvey again. That would be amazing. Stephen Colbert, my first improv teacher, would love to work with him again. Steve Carell, that would be awesome. Heather Morgan, who was also on the show with us. Dino Stamatopoulos, one of the funniest writers I've ever had the pleasure of writing with. And it was a pleasure laying in bed and having him stroke my arm with a Nixon mask on. That was for a sketch. That was for a sketch called Nixon's on Dana Carvey Show. But that's the level of insanity that man reaches. Yeah, those are also amazing people.
You say about wanting to work with the people.
The list is so long. I'm gonna start making a wish list, and then by the time I'm done working with all of them, I'll be done with this podcast 5 years later, listing all the people I would love to work with.
You say that about wanting to work with the people of Wizards of Waverly Place again. Disney Plus is a thing now, and they keep doing these reunion things on there. Let's get it on there. Let's go. Let's make it. Let's pitch it. Everyone here.
Yeah,
tweet,
I know.
Tweet Disney.
That's yeah. And follow me on TikTok at Bill Chott, because I'm the person talking about it the most. Every time I go live, people, and I'm the only cast member that goes live as often as I do. But they'll, every time I do a live, when's the reboot? Hey, what about a reboot? Reboot, please. That's most of the comments when I go live. And if I had anything to say about it, yeah, I'm not even sure if I would be included in it, because they're not going to be in school anymore. I could be their neighbor. They could have some weird reason why I'm around, but I would love that.
Oh, you got to be there. You got to be
maybe they're still living in that building that I lived in with them. Who knows? But yeah, I know everybody involved in it wants to do it. I don't know if Peter Murrieta would want to be a part of it or not, because he kind of like severed relations with the show in the last season or so. Todd Greenwald, the creator, I know wants to do it. So, I don't know what the drawback is, but it could be that they want to be the last one to do a reboot. So it's not like the first one jumping on the train to reboot. They want people begging for it for about 10 years and then to drop with all the ceremony and the full court press, make it happen. I hope they don't do it as a movie. It should be a season live in front of an audience. That's how I feel it should be.
Absolutely.
An audience of only fans, not just like filling the audience. You know, people have to win a lottery to get a seat in that studio. What I want. My list of demands is high.
I've noticed.
And I have explosives at my disposal. I'm sorry, I missed what you said when I was talking about explosives.
I'm too scared now. No, I was gonna say, before we start wrapping up, I did want to mention, you mentioned it yourself, you do have your own improv school, the Improv Trick. So what made you want to start your own
do,
school?
and we're offering corporate improv classes for organizations, and sometimes an occasional master class. We used to offer weekly classes, and my career is such at the point that I can't afford to teach weekly classes and be there in person every week, or and the demand every time I've tried to have assistant teachers doesn't work out the same way. So for now, classes are on suspension, and we're doing classes for corporations, master classes for actors who want to invest in their careers and learn more about the professional business.
I love that you want to give
But
back.
improv is for everybody. Everybody can learn improv, and that's the message behind the corporate workshops.
That's awesome.
What are you saying, Tom?
Sorry, I was just going to say, you're passing on your knowledge, like you're passing on, teaching it to the next generation of improv, students and whatnot, and be like, this is what I learned, and now you'll learn it, and then you'll teach someone else, and then they'll teach someone else, etc. I love that you're passing the knowledge down.
Thank you. We're also forming a nonprofit called Camp We Can Too, and it's for kids with all abilities to be able to study improv and movement, dance, making short films, things like that, which we're about to start up here in the next quarter.
Incredible.
That is awesome. What made you want to start teaching in the first place, just out of interest?
The reason I started teaching was because it was just offered to me as an option at Second City when I was a performer. They would have us do a show for a corporation or something like that and say, oh, and while you're there, we want you to teach a 2-hour workshop at improv. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. And they said, here, just do these 10 exercises. I'm like, oh, I know those 10 exercises. Okay. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. It's fun watching people watch it click with some people. And then in 2005, I was still doing a lot of corporate workshops and teaching improv for corporations. But in 2005, my wife at the time said, why don't you teach? And I was, why don't you teach for yourself? And I said, well, I don't really, I could teach at Second City or Improv Olympic out here, but it would be a lot of my time and investment for very little money. And she said, well, what if you start your own thing? So I started my own thing. For many years, it was a way to make some extra income and also to grow my passion as a teacher. And I have loved every minute of it. It just doesn't it's not in alignment right now with my goals and my time to offer classes on a weekly basis.
That's fair enough. Everyone's got things on in life. So instead of.
But if I could bring it to kids of different abilities, and I could bring it to corporations, I'll be very happy still having an outlet for that passion.
It's beautiful. I love it. Bill, this has been so much fun. One last question from myself, though. Mm-hmm. I know this is like asking you to pick a favorite child, but if you were looking back at your career and the amazing work you've done, is there a particular project or piece of work that you feel that extra bit of pride, something that, was like a great day at the office that you'd suggest people to go check out?
Mm-hmm. I would definitely say it's The Ringer. It was, one of the best experiences of my life working on. more people should see it and know about it and know about the message. If there's any character that I could revisit, it would be that one. I don't think it'd be appropriate anymore to have me play a character with a disability, because I think it's more appropriate to have an actor, now that it's been proven by so many actors with disabilities that they're very, very capable of doing it themselves, and it's not going to slow down the workload, and it's not going to cost the studio extra time or money. And if it does, it's quality money and quality time being invested. But, for all those reasons, I love the character. I love the film. That would be the one.
I really want to go watch that film again now. It's been a little while. Mr. Stevens, do you have any more questions for our glorious guest?
I do, Bill. When you first started out back as a child, and you wanted to be an acting, you were in theatre, etc. Did you ever think that your life would spiral the way it has done and get to where you are today?
What the life I'm living right now is definitely not the life that I expected. I didn't know what it would be. I thought maybe I'd be on Broadway. I didn't know that I'd be married twice. I didn't know I'd start an improv school. Never imagined that as a kid. Never thought I'd be a teacher of any kind. I didn't expect most of the wonderful things that have happened in my life. I always wanted to voice cartoons, never knew what the path to that was. I need to find the pathway back into that too, because I haven't done it in a long time. And now that I'm, back here in Los Angeles full time and I have more time to dedicate to my career, I would really love to do more of that. But I didn't, the Dana Carvey show is what handed me a voiceover career. When I did the Ambiguously Gay Duo, other opportunities came after that because that was my calling card. So it wasn't that was something that was handed to me that I didn't even really apply much focus to. So had a lot of wonderful things happen in my life that I didn't expect, didn't ask for, and feel extremely blessed by.
Beautiful. Bill, have you got any plugs, websites, social medias, things you want people to go check out who are listening to this?
Sure. I would love it if we can get some more followers to follow me over there on TikTok at Bill Chott. Chott is the way you spell that last name. And maybe you can put that link on your website. Also, the Improv Trick for corporations and organizations or entire countries that would like to have me come over there and teach some improv workshops, private workshops for them. Or people who are interested in joining up with Camp We Can Too, our nonprofit that's going to be teaching classes for disabilities for kids of all ages. They can just go to theimprovtrick.com and let us know there. We're still working on building that website, but theimprovtrick.com is the best way to get in touch with me.
Beautiful. And may I recommend everyone go check out Bill's YouTube channel, because there's some great characters and improv on there. Always in stitches watching some of those.
Oh, thank you. There'll be a lot more on my YouTube soon. I'm going to be downloading a lot of the lives that I've done on TikTok and Facebook and sharing those, editing them down slightly, and then sharing those on the YouTube channel. So yeah, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, Bill Chott, Chott.
This has been so much fun. I've absolutely loved it, and we'll have you back again.
I would love to come back again. There's so much more to cover, and if there's any way I can help you guys out, you let me know.
Appreciate that, Bill. Thank you so much. Hope you get to Pasadena, okay? Take care of yourself.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Bill. What a fantastic conversation. I loved this so much. It's so inspirational. And it's just beautiful. And just to see a man love the legacy from his father and to really embrace that. Yeah, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful.
This is a really good conversation. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time out to sit and chat with us. We really enjoyed it, and we really appreciate you taking the time out. So we look forward to talking to you again in the future. And we hope you got to your destination. I think you were going to Pasadena. So hopefully you got there on time, so which is all good, and we really hope that you all enjoyed listening to it as much as we did recording it.